What if I told you that after one of the darkest chapters in its history, America didn't just recover, it exploded with growth? From the ashes of the Civil War rose a nation of factories, railroads, and seemingly endless ambition. Imagine a time when entire cities rose from the ground overnight. The vast American West opened its arms to anyone brave enough to venture there, and the dream of opportunity of building a better life seemed truly within reach for everyone. This is the story of how America expanded, industrialized, and decisively stepped onto the world stage. And here's the part that changed everything. This wasn't just a period of growth, it was the birth of modern America as we know it today. Let's rewind to 1865. The Civil War had just ended, leaving the country scarred, divided, and exhausted. The future was uncertain, but instead of collapsing under the weight of its own wounds, the nation began to rebuild, stronger, faster, and with a determination that was almost unbelievable. At the heart of this rebirth was the railroad. Steel tracks began to stretch across the land like veins, connecting towns, cities, and people in a way that had never been possible before. The crowning achievement was the Transcontinental Railroad, completed in 1869. This single project became a powerful steel thread, binding the nation together from the Atlantic to the Pacific. It wasn't just about moving goods or people. For millions, it was a profound symbol. It was a promise that America could move forward, that the divisions of the past could be bridged, and that a new beginning was truly underway. The whistle of a locomotive echoing across the plains wasn't just a sound. It was the sound of a nation healing and racing toward its future. While the East was rebuilding, the West was calling. The idea of the Great Westward Expansion was more than just a policy. It was an irresistible force of nature. Vast open lands, the glittering promise of gold rushes, and the Homestead Act, which offered 160 acres of public land to settlers for a small fee, drew millions of dreamers, pioneers, and families westward. The iconic image of covered wagons slowly making their way across the Great Plains became the defining picture of American courage and ambition during this era. New towns, some of which would become major cities, seemed to spring up from the dust overnight. But this expansion was far from a romantic adventure. It came at a tremendous cost. Settlers faced incredibly harsh environments, from brutal winters to scorching summers. The labor was backbreaking, and the isolation could be crushing. More tragically, this expansion led to deep and violent cultural conflicts with Native American tribes who had lived on these lands for centuries. Despite the hardships and the moral complexities, the idea of manifest destiny, the belief that America was divinely ordained to expand across the continent, pushed people ever westward. By the 1890s, the US Census Bureau officially declared the frontier closed. There was no longer a discernible line between settled and unsettled land. The map of the continental United States was, for the most part, complete. The wild, untamed West had been transformed, and so had the nation itself. Simultaneously, back in the cities of the East and Midwest, a different kind of revolution was unfolding. This one wasn't fought on a battlefield with soldiers, but in the factory with workers and machines. This was the Industrial Revolution, and it would change daily life more profoundly than any war ever could. Three resources became the holy trinity of this new age: steel, oil, and electricity. Titans of industry emerged, men whose names are still synonymous with wealth and power today. Andrew Carnegie built a steel empire that provided the very skeleton for the nation's new skyscrapers, bridges, and railroads. John D. Rockefeller saw the immense potential of oil and created Standard Oil, an empire that dominated the industry and fueled the lamps and eventually the engines of a new America. Meanwhile, inventors like Thomas Edison and Alexander Graham Bell were literally bringing light and sound into the lives of millions. Edison's light bulb banished the darkness, allowing factories to run 24 hours a day and fundamentally changing how people lived in their own homes. Bell's telephone revolutionized communication, shrinking vast distances and connecting people in an instant. The constant roar of machines, the billowing smoke from factory smokestacks, these became the sights and sounds of progress. America was no longer just a farming nation, It was rapidly becoming an economic powerhouse. But this incredible progress also created new, daunting challenges. Cities became overcrowded and polluted, and the conditions for the workers fueling this revolution were often grim, setting the stage for future conflicts. As the factories and industries grew, they needed one crucial thing: people. And people came by the millions. This period saw one of the largest waves of immigration in history. From Europe and Asia, men, women, and children arrived at ports like Ellis Island in New York and Angel Island in California, all of them chasing the elusive but powerful American dream. They came seeking opportunity, freedom from persecution, or simply a chance to build a better life for their families. They took the toughest jobs, working in the steel mills, the coal mines, and on the railroads. They were the ones who laid the tracks, dug the tunnels, and operated the machines. In many ways, they built the very foundation of modern America with their bare hands and sheer determination. Life for these new arrivals was incredibly hard. They often faced discrimination, lived in crowded tenements, and worked long hours for low pay. Yet, in the bustling, crowded streets of cities like New York, Chicago, and San Francisco, something amazing happened. Cultures from all over the world began to blend, creating a vibrant, dynamic, and diverse society. Italian, Irish, Polish, Chinese, and Jewish communities, among many others, established their own neighborhoods, bringing their food, traditions, and languages with them. This was the dawn of a truly multicultural America, a melting pot of peoples and ideas that gave the nation its unique and energetic heartbeat. Of course, all this industrialization created immense wealth, but it also created deep and growing conflict. As the gap between the ultra-rich and the working poor widened, workers began to fight back. They started organizing into unions and launching strikes, demanding better wages, safer working conditions, and an 8-hour workday. These labor struggles were often met with violent resistance from factory owners and the government. But they marked the beginning of the American labor movement, a fight for workers' rights that continues to this day. At the same time, the captains of industry, or robber barons as their critics called them, were consolidating their power. Figures like J.P. Morgan, a financier who controlled vast banking and industrial empires, and Cornelius Vanderbilt, who dominated the railroad industry, shaped the nation's economy in ways that had never been seen before. They turned capitalism into a powerful and sometimes ruthless new American force, creating monopolies that controlled entire sectors of the economy. But innovation wasn't just about big finance. It was also about making things better and faster. No one embodied this spirit more than Henry Ford. With his revolutionary assembly line, Ford didn't just build cars, he transformed manufacturing forever. By making the process incredibly efficient, he was able to produce the Model T at a price that many ordinary American families could afford. Suddenly, the automobile wasn't a luxury for the rich, it was a tool for the masses. This focus on efficiency became a core tenet of American life. By the early 1900s, America stood tall, recognized as one of the most powerful and innovative nations on Earth. Think about the scale of this transformation. In just a few decades, America went from farms to factories, from covered wagons to automobiles, from candlelight to electric lights. The very spirit of the nation was reborn. Its people had endured a devastating civil war, embraced radical innovation, and held an unwavering belief in the idea of progress. This was an age of bold dreams and an almost manic energy, an era that laid the foundation for everything that came next in the 20th century. By 1914, on the eve of World War I, America was no longer a young, fragile republic finding its footing. It was an industrial giant, confident, connected, and ready to face the challenges of a new century. The story of America's expansion and industrialization isn't just a tale of machines, maps, and money. It's a story about people, the inventors, the workers, the immigrants, the pioneers, and the dreamers who took a nation of hope and rebuilt it with steel. So, it makes you wonder, if you were living in that era of unstoppable change, of immense risk and incredible reward, what role would you have played? Would you have been a builder, creating the new cities and railroads? A dreamer heading west to claim your piece of the frontier? Or an inventor, tinkering in a workshop on the next big idea that would change the world? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoyed this journey through history, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more stories that shape the world we live in today. Thanks for watching.